Do you remember the gripping disaster film The Poseidon Adventure? A cinematic masterpiece that kept audiences on the edge of their seats. It also marked the beginning of unexpected journeys for its cast. While they once stood in the spotlight, life had other plans. Tragic accidents, personal struggles, and unforeseen twists sent some spiraling downward. Others fought their way back, redefining their careers and identities. Where are they now in 2025? Their real-life stories are just as dramatic as the film itself. Join us as we uncover the untold truths behind the Poseidon Adventure CAST. Lives spiraled downward due to accidents. Where are they now in 2025? A behind-the-scenes look at fate's unpredictable course. Gene Hackman, who portrayed Reverend Frank Scott in the Poseidon Adventure, was 42 years old when he embodied the role of the daring, unorthodox minister whose faith was rooted in action rather than passivity. His performance, intense and self-sacrificing, stood as the moral anchor of the film. Off-screen, Hackman's career soared in the 1970s, but gradually receded into silence after his final role in 2004. Despite 2 Academy Awards and critical acclaim, his post-acting years were marked by isolation. He was married to Faye Maltese from 1956 to 1986, and they had 3 children, Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie. Their marriage unraveled under the pressures of fame and infidelity. He remarried Betsy Arakawa in 1991, but reports suggested emotional distance and long separations. Hackman also faced the loss of close friends, heart surgery, and estrangement from one of his children. Though admired, he led a reclusive life in New Mexico, shunning Hollywood. Now 95, he lives quietly, painting and writing novels, with very few public appearances. Once celebrated for his commanding screen presence, his final years are steeped in solitude and reflection. His estate is estimated at $80 million, much of it invested in art and real estate, with several charitable endowments made anonymously. Carol Lynley, who played the timid nightclub singer Nani Perry in the Poseidon Adventure, was just 30 years old when she portrayed the grieving, vulnerable woman who finds her courage amidst catastrophe. Her fragile performance resonated deeply, but her real life was shadowed by instability. Lynley's career faltered after the 70s, reduced to guest spots in B-movies. She had a highly publicized relationship with English broadcaster David Frost, but they never married, and her 18-year relationship with him ended in emotional devastation. She was married once to publicist Michael Selzman, and they had one daughter, Jill, but the marriage ended in 1964 amid bitter legal disputes. Lynley struggled with depression, financial instability, and multiple miscarriages. Estranged from Hollywood, she lived alone in a small Los Angeles apartment. Her later years were filled with health complications, including strokes and kidney disease. She died on September 3, 2019, at the age of 77 from a heart attack, largely forgotten by the industry she once lit up. Her estate was modest, valued at around $500,000, with much of it going to her daughter and unpaid medical bills. Ernest Borgnine, who was 55 years old when he portrayed the brash yet loyal detective Lieutenant Mike Rogo in the Poseidon Adventure, delivered a performance filled with grit and reluctant heroism. His volatile character was softened by hidden warmth, a reflection of Borgnine himself. Though an Oscar winner, his post-Poseidon career fluctuated between success and mediocrity, and his personal life was even more erratic. He married 5 times, including a disastrous 32-day marriage to singer Ethel Merman, which ended in mutual silence and scorn. His longest marriage, to Tove Tresnes, lasted until his death, but insiders reported emotional distance and long stretches apart due to touring. He had 4 children, Nancy, Sharon, Diana, and Christopher, with whom he had strained ties. His life bore scars of war trauma, industry betrayals, and the premature death of a grandchild. Despite his affable public image, Borgnine struggled with loneliness in his final years, continuing to work into his 90s, as if afraid of what silence might bring. He passed away on July 8, 2012, from kidney failure at age 95. His estate was valued at approximately $15 million, with most left to his wife and a veterans charity he quietly supported. Stella Stevens, 36, when she portrayed the brassy and seductive Linda Rogo in the Poseidon Adventure, brought fiery vulnerability to the role of a reformed prostitute desperate for validation in the eyes of her husband. Her beauty and talent were undeniable, but Stevens' personal life was marred by emotional fractures. Her early success gave way to a declining career riddled with exploitation and typecasting. She was married once to electrician Noble Herman Stevens, with whom she had a son, actor Andrew Stevens, but the marriage ended in 1957, and she never remarried. Her relationships with men were fleeting and often toxic, including rumored affairs with industry giants that left her disillusioned. She faced 5 major life tragedies: losing custody battles, financial ruin in the 1980s, a near-fatal car crash, a breast cancer diagnosis, and the estrangement from her son for several years. In her later life, she battled Alzheimer's disease and lived in a memory care facility. She passed away on February 17, 2023, at age 84. Once a Hollywood starlet, her final years were quiet and filled with sorrow. Her estate, reduced significantly from her heyday, was estimated at $1 million, with most left in trust for medical care and a small donation to an animal rescue organization. Jack Albertson, who portrayed the gentle yet resilient Manny Rosen in the Poseidon Adventure, was 65 years old when he played the devoted husband struggling to protect his ailing wife through the wreckage. Known for embodying warmth and integrity, Albertson's performance added emotional depth to the film. Off-screen, his life was marked by a mixture of acclaim and private anguish. He married Wallace Thompson in 1952, and they had one daughter, Maura Dhu, but the marriage was strained by long periods of separation due to his theatrical and television commitments. Despite being a loving father, Albertson battled profound loneliness later in life. His career faded in the late 70s as roles became scarce and his health deteriorated. Diagnosed with colorectal cancer in 1978, he continued working in silence while enduring immense pain. He suffered from depression after losing his brother George in a tragic accident, and became increasingly reclusive. He passed away in 1981 at the age of 74. Albertson left behind a modest estate valued at approximately $1.5 million, much of which went to his wife and daughter. Though remembered for his roles in film and television, he was privately mourned as a man who gave everything to his craft while concealing his emotional burdens. Arthur O'Connell, who was 58 years old when he played the role of Chaplain John in the Poseidon Adventure, delivered a poignant performance as a spiritual guide whose calm presence brought solace amidst terror. His role mirrored the weariness of a man acquainted with despair. In real life, O'Connell was haunted by a string of failed relationships and financial instability. He never married, though he had a long, turbulent relationship with actress Anne Robinson, which ended when his alcoholism worsened. Childless and increasingly isolated, he turned to faith later in life, ironically echoing his chaplain role. His post-Poseidon career faltered as studios deemed him unreliable due to his declining health and drinking habits. He suffered several strokes in the late 70s and was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease shortly after. By the time of his death in 1981 at age 73, he had been largely forgotten by Hollywood. O'Connell died penniless in a nursing facility in California, with his estate valued at less than $100,000. His later years were marked by regret and solitude, despite his earlier acclaim on stage and screen. Fred Sadoff, who played the cold and unfeeling corporate enforcer Lenarcos in the Poseidon Adventure, was 44 years old when he took on the role. His portrayal of a man prioritizing corporate interest over human lives made him one of the film's most detested characters. Off-screen, Sadoff was a complex figure with an equally troubled personal life. He never married and kept his personal relationships guarded, though close friends believed he struggled with unrequited love and long bouts of depression. After Poseidon, his career lost momentum. He drifted between minor TV roles and regional theater productions, never recapturing the fame the film promised. In the late 80s, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which severely limited his mobility and forced him into early retirement. He grew estranged from his family and spent his final years in relative obscurity in Los Angeles. When he passed away in 1994 at the age of 68, Sadoff left behind a modest estate of around $300,000. Despite his talent and training, he remained a tragic figure, a man swallowed not by a tidal wave, but by the silence that followed his brief taste of cinematic recognition. Red Buttons, who was 53 when he played the humble and introverted James Martin in the Poseidon Adventure, gave a heartfelt performance as a timid haberdasher who found courage in catastrophe. A veteran of comedy and drama, Buttons brought warmth and subtlety to the role. His personal life, however, was a bittersweet contradiction to his on-screen charm. He was married twice, first to actress Roxanne Arlen, a union that collapsed within 2 years, and later to Alicia Pratts, with whom he had 2 children, Amy and Adam. Though he loved his children dearly, his long absences for film work strained his family life. After the death of Alicia in 2001, Buttons became despondent and rarely appeared in public. His later years were marked by deep grief, declining health, and estrangement from some family members. He struggled with heart disease and was hospitalized multiple times before passing away in 2006 at the age of 87. Despite the tragedies, he remained admired by fans for his gentleness and humor. His estate was valued at approximately $3 million, reflecting both his success and prudent financial management. He died quietly in Century City, remembered more by strangers than those he once called his own. Roddy McDowall, who portrayed the diligent Stuart Akers in the Poseidon Adventure, was 44 years old in 1972 when he took on the role of the loyal crew member whose early injury emphasized the vulnerability of the ship's staff. Known for his quiet intensity and graceful presence, McDowall gave Akers a tragic dignity that resonated deeply with audiences. Despite his prolific career, McDowall's personal life was often a lonely one. He never married and had no children, often stating that his work left little room for romance. Rumors circulated about his closeted private life, but he remained fiercely guarded. His final years were marked by isolation, punctuated by the deaths of close friends like Elizabeth Taylor and Natalie Wood. He suffered from progressive cancer, which he kept secret until near the end. A hoarder of Hollywood memories, McDowall amassed thousands of photographs and films, which he painstakingly archived, fearing his legacy would be forgotten. He passed away in 1998 at the age of 70 from cancer. Though reclusive, his estate was valued at approximately $1.5 million, much of it in rare memorabilia and property, later donated to preservation causes and archives he had long supported. Shelley Winters, who portrayed Belle Rosen, the former swimming champion whose final act of heroism saves others, was 51 during filming in 1972. Her tender, raw performance earned critical acclaim, but behind her strength on screen was a life marked by sorrow. Married 3 times, most notably to Vittorio Gassman, with whom she had her only daughter, Vittoria, Winters's romantic relationships were often marred by infidelity and instability. Her daughter later described a childhood clouded by fame and emotional distance. Winters battled addiction, weight issues, and was haunted by multiple miscarriages. She frequently spoke about feeling unappreciated in Hollywood despite 2 Academy Awards. After a series of strokes in her final years, she died in 2006 at the age of 85. Though celebrated, her last days were marked by regret and loneliness, often surrounded more by caregivers than loved ones. Her estate, valued at approximately $4 million, was largely divided between her daughter and various Jewish charities she supported. Pamela Sue Martin, who played the resilient Susan Shelby at just 19 years old, brought grace and vulnerability to the role of the older sister thrust into survival mode. Now 71, Martin's post-Poseidon years were a tumultuous journey. Her fame skyrocketed with Nancy Drew and Dynasty, but the spotlight proved too intense. Disillusioned by Hollywood, she famously posed for Playboy in protest of being typecast. She was married and divorced twice, first to director Manuel Rojas, and then to jazz musician Michael Desbars, with both relationships ending amid accusations of emotional volatility and creative jealousy. She had one son, Alexander, with whom she reportedly shares a strained relationship. Suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and battling anxiety for decades, Martin eventually retreated from the industry entirely, moving to a secluded life in Idaho. Though largely reclusive today, her estate is estimated at around $1 million, including modest real estate holdings and occasional royalties. Eric Shea, who portrayed Robin Shelby at age 12, brought youthful curiosity and surprising knowledge to the group's survival. Now 65, Shea's early promise in Hollywood was never fully realized. After the Poseidon Adventure, he starred in several films but was soon typecast as the precocious kid. Struggling with the pressures of child stardom, he dropped out of acting in his 20s and turned to music and odd jobs. Shea never married, claiming in rare interviews that his childhood left him emotionally out of sync with intimacy. He remained close to his siblings but has no children. Among his personal tragedies were a near-fatal car accident in his 30s, the loss of both parents within a year, and a public bankruptcy in the 1990s. He reportedly battled depression and alcohol abuse for years. Living a quiet life in Northern California, Shea survives on modest Social Security benefits and limited residuals. His estimated estate is less than $250,000, consisting mostly of an old family home and a few royalties from classic film appearances. Sheila Allen, who portrayed Nurse Gina Rowe in the Poseidon Adventure, was 42 years old when she played the calm and compassionate caregiver tending to wounded and frightened passengers amid the chaos. Allen's performance added a quiet strength to the ensemble cast. Off-screen, however, her life was marred by personal sorrow. Married in her early 30s to theater director Peter Potter, their relationship became strained as her career flourished while his declined, leading to a bitter divorce. They had two sons, Andrew and Thomas, both of whom became estranged from her during her later years. Allen's post-Poseidon career stalled despite several attempts to revive it on British television. She suffered through a painful cancer diagnosis in the late 1990s and battled loneliness after her sister's sudden death in 2002. Financial difficulties plagued her final decade, and her home was nearly repossessed in 2008. Though she found solace in poetry and correspondence with former castmates, she died of natural causes in 2013 at the age of 78. Her estate, once modest, had dwindled to an estimated $150,000 at the time of her passing, much of it tied up in debts and unpaid royalties. Byron Webster, who took on the role of the purser in the Poseidon Adventure, was 48 years old when he portrayed the stoic, composed authority figure trying to maintain order in the face of rising panic. Behind the scenes, Webster's personal life was far less orderly. Born in London and drawn to the stage early on, he struggled to find lasting success in Hollywood. He married costume designer Elizabeth Harper in 1960, but their union disintegrated after the stillbirth of their only child in 1965, a loss they never recovered from. Following the Poseidon Adventure, Webster's career faltered, relegated mostly to uncredited roles and off-Broadway disappointments. Plagued by alcoholism and chronic anxiety, he spent his later years alone in a rent-controlled apartment in Los Angeles. Financially unstable and emotionally withdrawn, he became known in his building as the quiet Brit who never smiled. He died of heart failure in 1986 at the age of 63, with few attending his funeral. His estate was valued at a mere $40,000, mostly consisting of aging stage props and a dusty collection of vinyl records. Bob Hastings, who played the MC at the New Year's party in the Poseidon Adventure, was 47 years old when he embodied the cheerful, charismatic announcer, setting a jubilant tone just before disaster unraveled. Though a minor role, his presence underscored the cruel contrast between celebration and catastrophe. Hastings had long been a recognizable face in radio and television, best known as Lieutenant Elroy Carpenter in McHale's Navy. Off-screen, his life was far more complex. Married to Joan Rice since 1948, their union weathered multiple separations due to Hastings' workaholism and a widely rumored affair in the 1960s. They had 4 children: Donald, Susan, Michael, and Kathleen, none of whom followed him into acting. In his later years, Hastings suffered from advanced prostate cancer and struggled with hearing loss, which silenced his once celebrated voice. Despite being a beloved figure at fan conventions, he often spoke of his regret over missing his children's childhoods. He passed away peacefully in 2014 at age 89. His estate, carefully managed by his wife, was estimated at $1.5 million. Who is your favorite character from the Poseidon Adventure? How does it feel knowing that some of the actors are no longer with us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future uploads. Thank you for your support.